So today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different spin with dough, and I still have my flour here, but we're going to be using our flour to make pierogis. And it's the first time I'm actually making them from scratch. But we've already boiled 8 potatoes, so they're russet potatoes that we boiled down just like mashed potatoes. And I'm going to give them just by hand. You can do it in a mixer as well, or a food processor, but I just want to get them nice and mashed because this is going to be our filling for the pierogis. So doing a traditional potato and cheese filling, a little bit of a spin on it, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But just getting our boiled potatoes, we're not adding anything yet, it's just the potatoes themselves. I salted the boiling water while they were cooking, just a bit. Other than that, it's just like you would boil when you're doing mashed potatoes. And as you can see, I have a big bowl. 8 potatoes is going to be a lot of filling. I'm going to be making a lot of pierogis. And the reason for that is it is time consuming and labor intensive, meaning that it's going to take a while to get each little one filled and wrapped. So if you make them ahead of time, you can always stick extras in the freezer. And on a rainy day, when you are craving a pierogi, you just pull them out and voila. You don't have to do all this work. Now, for the filling, I'm going to do a traditional cheddar. So I have grated cheddar cheese, and this is extra sharp cheddar that I grated by hand earlier. It's about 1 block, so like if you think about it, I'm not sure, it's like 16 ounces, which would be what, like, how much is that? Is that like 2 cups? I don't even know measurements, but I'm just going to add this into our potatoes. It's going to start melting in there. You can use pre-grated cheese if you want. Cheddar is providing that like sharp bite to it. And then I have cream cheese that I took out, and it's at room temp. And I'm just going to take about half of this cream cheese and add that as well. So that's going to provide like a creamy texture to our potatoes. Let me just grab a spoon. I'm just going to start mixing it in and getting that incorporated. So the cream cheese will start to combine and melt in, and the cheese with the potatoes. Now the potatoes are still hot because I took them right out of the boiling water. And so that's going to help get everything incorporated. Before we fill our dough mixture, once we create that, this will be sitting out at room temp, so it will be not hot and it'll be easy to handle by hand when we're rolling it. Get that all combined, mixed in. So you can see it's combining together with the cheese, but one other little thing I want to add just to get a nice smooth mixture is a stick of melted butter. So you can see while I was doing that, I melted butter ahead of time, and I am just going to pour that into the potatoes. All of it, because who doesn't love butter? People lie to you. Butter is actually really good for you. Don't be afraid of butter. If you get a good quality butter, it is one of the best fats that you can incorporate into your cooking and baking and diet. I like it better than any oil. Oils are what you kind of have to be concerned about, because depending on the type, they might not be so clean, and a lot of them have the processing and different additives that are not so great for you. but butter is always a good option. So you can see that butter really helped. You see the potato is getting smooth and fluffy and creamy, and all the cream cheese and cheddar is incorporated now. So you gotta have some muscle when you're working any type of dough or mixture. Get it all in there, mixed together. Perfect. So now that we have our filling set, just going to add a little bit of salt to it. So just have just ordinary table salt. Use natural sea salt, Morton brand, established 1848. We love our Morton salt. And it's just a taste, just to season the filling. So depending on, if you're using 8 potatoes, you need at least a couple tablespoons of salt. And we'll add a little bit more later when we're doing our flour mixture. That's perfect. So potatoes are ready with the cheese and the butter. I'm just going to smooth that out. And you can always save the spoon and lick it. It's a good little treat. I'm going to take some foil just to cover it. And then we set it aside, let it get to room temp while we work on our dough. So I really like pierogis with sauteed onions and butter. So after they're cooked, to eat them with that. So I'm just prepping before we even do our dough. I'm getting the onions ready. And so half a stick of butter, unsalted. I'm just melting that down in a saute pan that's at medium heat. So you can see the butter's melting nicely. And I already took 2 large yellow onions and chopped them so that they're just these nice slivers and rings. So they're gonna cook down nicely with the butter. Throw them into the hot pan once you get the butter melted. You need a big enough pan to accommodate all the onions, but like I said, they're gonna cook down in the butter, and so they'll shrink in size. But they're such a good accompaniment to pierogis, so it's always good to have them cooked ahead of time, so when the pierogis are ready and you're ready to eat and plate, you have some butter and onions ready to go. And that's it. So now they're all in the pan. Whenever you're cooking with onions, you want to salt the onions, and it draws out the moisture. So Morton salt again. You can sponsor me, Morton. I love the Morton salt. So just some sea salt over those onions. And again, medium heat. You don't want to burn them, you just want to get them to start cooking down. Okay, so the salt is going to draw out the moisture from those onions. So they'll cook down nicely in the butter. And I would say for 2 large onions, you don't want any of these skin type things. So the consistency that you want with the onions, you're going to cook them down, they're going to turn translucent, and then they're going to slightly brown, and that's what you want. You want to see it slightly browning, but not burnt. Just like that nice caramelized color on the onions is what you're looking for. So this is going to take a little while, probably about like 5 to 8 minutes, I would. All right, so we cooked down the onions. It's in about, I would say like 10 minutes or so. You can go a little bit longer if you have more onions that you're cooking, but this is the color you want. You want that nice caramelization so that they're browned in the butter. And see all those little bits? I already did it once during the cooking process, but if you just take a little bit of water, it's not gonna mess anything up. You're gonna be able to deglaze the pan. You add a little bit of water to your onions. It's just gonna help soften them even more, and it's gonna get up all of those brown bits from the pan, which is flavor that you don't wanna lose. So if you see some of those little brown bits, you can always just add a splash, and it will clean the pan. You won't be scrubbing the pan. It will get all that goodness incorporated in with the onions, soften them even more, and make an extra yummy onion butter side to go with our pierogis. So that's done now. I'm just going to turn this off, set that aside, and we're going to make our dough. So you want to come over here. I have everything prepped for our dough here. I'm going to use a KitchenAid stand mixer. I love my KitchenAid. It's so versatile. It does pretty much everything. I have the dough attachment on here, so make sure that you use that. But the first thing we're going to do is just take an egg, and I have a half a cup of milk here. You could do it separately. You can beat the egg first. I'm just going to do it in the milk mixture to save on plates and whatnot, but just crack that in there. And we're gonna beat the egg. Give my hands a quick little wash because I got a little bit on there. Clean it up. And just take a fork and just beat that in the half a cup of milk. So one large egg will do it. If you have 2 small eggs, that's fine too. So we're just gonna get that all incorporated, like you're making a custard for French toast or something, same kind of method. We'll clean up. Now we're gonna take our flour here and add that to the mixture. So it really depends on how many pierogis you wanna make. Like I said, we're gonna make a pretty big batch, and when you're using flour with any type of thing like baking bread or whatnot, or making a dough for pasta or pierogis and whatnot, it really, the moisture level and how much flour you're gonna use is gonna be dependent on the weather outside and how dry it is. So you might need to add more water to add more moisture. So I'm just gonna eyeball it. It's gonna be about 2 cups of flour that we're gonna be using here, give or take. So I'm just doing, these are 1/3 cup scoops. A little bit more. And then we're gonna add our milk and egg mixture right to the flour there. I'm gonna save this measuring because we're going to also be adding some water later if we need it. And I'm going to take 2 heaping spoonfuls of sour cream. So don't skimp on this. Don't get the light sour cream, guys. Just get the whole milk original sour cream, because that's going to really make for a nice thick batter. And I don't want to lose any of this goodness. So I'm going to get my little itty bitty spatula. Make sure we get it all out of there. Very good. So stand mixer, it's going to go in. Make sure it's locked and just on low because you don't want the flour to come up. You're going to let that start to incorporate. So leave it back in the fridge because we're going to need that later. I'm just going to add some salt, a couple teaspoons of salt. Don't need too much because we're salting everything else as we go. And then I'm going to take some baking powder, which you should have in your house. Any type of baking. Always keep baking powder in the house. I'm just going to add, this is 1 teaspoon and 2 to that. So we're letting that all incorporate together. So we start to come together right in the stand mixer. Now if you don't have a stand mixer, you can obviously do this by hand in a mixing bowl. So you see it's a little dry, so at this point you're going to take a look and see if you need to add more moisture. I'm just going to add a little bit at a time with some water and just eyeball it to see how much you need. You want it to start to form into a ball. So the more moisture you have, it's going to pick up the loose flour from the side and start incorporating it in, but you want to go a little bit at a time because you don't want it to get liquidy. Just going to add a little bit more. But the egg, the milk, and the sour cream already provided some moisture to start it off. If you just do water, it's not going to be as elastic of a dough. So that's why we add the other agents. So you can see it's starting to come together, and this bread tool with the stand mixer really does a good job of getting it all into a ball for you so it's ready to work out on your surface. A little bit more. I'm going to just put some on this side. You'll see some. I think that might be it. For a little bit longer, get it all incorporated there. And we're good. So when you take it off, you see it should just come off like this, right off the mixer. It shouldn't be too wet or too dry. You want to just make sure it gets into that ball so it's ready to work out on our surface. All right, so I have a clean surface. I washed it before flouring it. Just we want to make sure that the dough doesn't stick to the surface. And this is what came from the mixer. So I'm just pressing it out. Now you don't have to knead like you would a dough that you're making with bread because there's no yeast in here. We don't need to activate anything. It's just a nice thick dough that we want to start working and rolling out to form our little pierogi. So I have my nice wooden tool to get the dough nice and flattened. So it's a little bit of a work. I'm going to keep moving it around, making sure it doesn't stick. If you have, which I don't at this point, but I'm gonna get one day, one of those pasta attachments to the stand mixer, it could actually, you can slide the dough through and it won't, you don't want it too thin like you would pasta, but to get it to the consistency you want easier. But you see that this dough that we made is pretty elastic, which is what you want for the pierogis. And you keep rolling it out. Move the flour. I like to flip it around a couple times because you can get it from different angles as you're rolling it. Now the filling with the potato cheese mixture, it's a little dense, so you don't, like I said, you don't want it to be so thin because you don't want the mixture while it's boiling in the water to fall out. You want to make sure that it stays in the little pocket that you make. So I'm just going to roll it a little bit more, and we should be at a pretty good consistency. So you can see the consistency here. We're almost there. You want it just a little bit thinner than where it's at. All right, I think that's pretty good. Now we want to cut into little rounds so that we can shape them. So this is actually, I just use what tools we have in the house, right? If you don't have an actual cutter, like a round cutter, look for something that's the size that you want it. Metal is actually good because it's going to help cut. I took the top from a little tea kettle that's clean, and it's the perfect size. It's like a little round, and it actually has a handle, so I can just start going and pressing down and making the right little shapes that we need for our pierogis. So I'm just gonna go and start cutting our rounds. But you can use anything you have in the house, like I said. You can take a metal cup, you can get a lid that's the right size. You basically want something that's the right size and that you could press in and cut those rounds out clean. I like that this one has a handle. So we got a bunch of rounds out of that, and then we have some extra dough here. Make sure when you lay them out, you put it on a floured surface because you don't want them to stick. So I have all this extra dough that we're just going to form again and roll out again. And then we'll go and make more of our little delicious dough pockets to make more of our pierogis. So we have our perfect little rounds. I already started filling them and our cooled potato cheese mixture. We're gonna just use a teaspoon and gather a good amount on that teaspoon. You wanna actually fill the round. It's gonna look overstuffed, but because the dough is so elastic, you're gonna be able to pinch it and get all of that mixture in pretty easily. So you want to pinch it around the sides and just get the dough without the potato mixture. Just keep going around, pinching the sides to get a nice seal. I think it's overstuffed, but like I said, the dough is so elastic that you can push that mixture in as you go and just crimp the edges. So keep pulling it. You're gonna get these little cute little half moon rounds. A nice plump pierogi is what you want. So it's all the potato cheese filling is in there. I just go around and make sure that it's nice, sealed all the way. And then just put it on a tray that's ready. You can flour it or put a parchment paper like I did. And then you're just going to keep going. So one by one, and get your potato in there. I love working with my hands. I think that's why I like making bread so much, is because it's a nice, relaxing, therapeutic almost activity where you get to get your hands working with the dough. Like I said, see how you pinch the edges. And I don't know if this is the technique that they do in Poland, but this works, so we go with it, right? I don't have any Polish blood in me, but I do love pierogis, so we do what we can. All right, this is another little plump pierogi. We keep going here, and when we're done filling them all, we're gonna just put them in some boiling water, which I have the pot getting ready right now, so it's ready to go. And we're gonna cook these. They're gonna go into the boiling pot for about 5 minutes to cook the dough and get the filling warmed all the way through. And then once they come out of that boiling water, I'm going to show you how we're going to finish them off and plate them for a yummy, yummy meal. We are ready. We took time to make all our pierogis. We have our boiling water. We're going to start dropping them in gently. You don't want them to break. Don't overcrowd. We're not going to do them all at the same time. We'll probably do a couple of batches, but we need to cook all the way through, so we're gonna keep it at a nice steady boil. And time it for 5 minutos. It's 5 minutes. So they're gonna start rising the surface, but keep it in there for 5 minutes because you want the dough to cook through. And they're all different shapes and sizes. Well, I mean the same size, but some are stuffed a little bit more than the others, but it's nice family style pierogis that we made. So I'm gonna put one more in and I'm gonna leave it like that to boil. And then we'll do round 2. Is happening. I get ready to saute. So I get a nice pan, stainless steel pan out, and I'm going to start heating this with a half a stick of butter because our onions are ready from before. We're just gonna pan fry just to get some color on them after they're done in the boiling water. We're gonna put them in the pan and get a nice crisp on the outside before we plate. It's gonna be delightful. We are taking, it's been 5 minutes, and our butter is nice and hot in the pan. And we are, as we take out our nice puffed up pierogis, they are going into the butter to get a nice sear. Look at that. I'm just going to take these quick ones out and put them here while they wait. As we drop more in, you gotta make room. If I was prepared, I would have had another tray ready to go, but c'est la vie. We do what we can. Get some color. Yeah, look at that crispy, nice pierogi. That's what I like. I like it nice crisp on the outside. take some that we're not going to eat tonight and save them for tomorrow. These are nice and boiled. So you can just eat them once they boil. That's fine too. You don't have to pan fry them if you don't want to. Whatever your preference is. I'm just going to take the hot stove here and just turn it off, but just put the onions just so that they can get warmed up. I've got my plate ready. Start taking out my delicious, puffed up, ready to go pierogis. You see how big they get, all filled with goodness. And what I like to do is just take a little of the onion that's now warmed through that we cooked earlier in the butter. Warming up on the stove. And you take your plate. Put some of that right on top. And then a nice dollop of sour cream. Big dollop there on the side for dipping. And then if you're sharing with your partner, one for them too. And you each get your little plate of homemade pierogis. That looks delightful, doesn't it? Alright, so now for the taste. Let's see. I need a big bite. Look at that potato in there. I'm gonna get some onions. I'm gonna have to. Oh, hot. That's one of the pierogi. Make them at home. Way better than store-bought. It's good. Share this with your loved one. You will definitely not be sad that you just spent all that time making them.